I bought my mom a luxury SUV for her retirement, but at the family reunion he laughed, "Look who finally grew a spine. With a bank loan." My cousin chuckled and said, "Guess you're still her punchline." I just smiled. That night I drove the car back to the dealership. Next morning she showed up at my work screaming. I never wanted to be the daughter who cuts off her own mother. But I'm 44, and I've spent most of those years being the emotional mule for my family. I thought buying her that SUV was my way of finally being seen. Instead, I became a punchline again. So, I smiled at the reunion, said nothing, and that night, I drove the car right back to the dealership. The next morning she stormed into my work, and everything came out. Years of resentment, pain, sacrifice. And now I don't know where we go from here. I didn't grow up poor, but I wouldn't call it easy. My mom, Lorraine, worked double shifts as an RN at Duke Medical Center in Durham, North Carolina. My dad, well, I barely remember him. He was gone by the time I was 10. Some say she pushed him out, others say he just ran. Either way, it was her and us 3 kids, me, Julian, and Roxanne. From the outside, we probably looked like a strong, tight-knit family. Mom was a nurse, Julian the golden boy, Roxanne the wild spirit, and me. I was the quiet one. The responsible one. The invisible one. I was the one who stayed behind, paid bills that weren't mine, picked up the pieces after every emotional hurricane that ripped through the house. I was the one who made sure things kept going while everyone else was burning bridges or demanding applause. And she never really saw me. But I saw her. She worked herself into the ground for over 4 decades. She rarely took vacations. She never bought herself anything new. Everything went to the kids, or, more often, to Julian, when one of his businesses failed or he needed a last-minute bailout. So when she finally retired last year at 66, I decided to do something big. Something I thought would change the narrative. I bought her a car. Not just a car, a luxury SUV. A 2024 Lexus RX 500h. I'd been saving and planning for years. I had good credit, good income, no kids. I could afford the payments comfortably. I imagined how she'd react. Tears, maybe. A speech about how proud she was of me. About how I finally got my turn. That's not what happened. The family reunion was held at my cousin Darla's place just outside Chapel Hill. A big backyard cookout, as usual. Lawn chairs, cheap beer, the smell of burgers on the grill. I picked Mom up in the Lexus, all polished and pristine. Her face lit up when she saw it in the driveway. She said, "This is mine?" And I nodded. She rode in the passenger seat like royalty, asking questions about the features, the gas mileage, the heated seats. For the first hour, everything felt good. Like maybe this time would be different. And then Julian showed up. He always makes an entrance, usually late. Aviator sunglasses, some new girlfriend in tow, always loud, always scanning the room to see who's watching. He walked right up to us, looked at the car, then turned to me and said, "Look who finally grew a spine. With a bank loan, no less." His laugh was loud. A few others joined in, including Cousin Royce. "Guess you're still her punchline, huh?" Royce added with a smirk. I didn't laugh. I looked at Mom. She laughed. She really laughed. Like it was genuinely funny. Like I wasn't standing right there, again, being mocked by the people she kept closest. And that was it. I didn't say anything. I just nodded, smiled, like I always do. But something inside me shut off. Something old and tired. Later that evening, I drove her home. She said, "Don't take their jokes so seriously. You know how Julian is." I smiled again and said, "Yeah, I know exactly how he is." Then I drove straight back to the Lexus dealership, handed them the keys, explained the situation, and told them to unwind the sale. They said they could, I'd lose the deposit, of course, but they understood. I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, and finally slept. The next morning, my assistant poked her head into my office and said, "Your mom is here." I didn't have time to brace myself. She stormed in, red-faced and furious. "You took the car back?" she hissed. "You bought it for me. You don't take back a gift. That's low, even for you." I closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair. "It wasn't a gift," I said. "It was me trying to finally earn something from you." "What the heck does that mean?" I looked at her, really looked. Still in her scrubs, even though she retired. Still acting like she has to hustle to earn love, just like I did. "You let Julian humiliate me. Again. In front of the whole family. You laughed at me. Again. I just wanted one day where I was something more than the family mule. And you couldn't give me that." She blinked. For the first time in my life, she looked like she didn't know what to say. "You don't get to laugh at me and still collect the keys to a brand new car the same night. That's not how it works anymore." She sat down heavily in the chair across from me, like her legs suddenly forgot how to hold her up. Her mouth opened, then closed. I could see her doing the mental math, rewinding the conversation to see where I had flipped the switch, when things stopped being easy. "You always read too much into everything," she said finally. Quieter this time. "No," I replied. "I just finally started telling the truth." She shook her head. "I never meant to hurt you. Your brother jokes around. That's just who he is. That's just who you let him be." That stung her. I could tell. But instead of acknowledging it, she looked down at her hands, twisting the straps of her purse. She still wore the gold bracelet Dad gave her for their 10th anniversary, the one she swore she'd throw out after he left. It hung there, faded and worn, like a symbol of everything she never really let go of. "Do you want me to apologize?" she asked, her tone sharp again. "Will that fix it?" I didn't answer. Not right away. I'd spent years accepting crumbs and pretending they were a full meal. I didn't want an apology that was only offered because I'd finally drawn a boundary. I wanted understanding. A shift. Something real. "I don't want you to fix anything," I said finally. "I just want you to stop pretending like I don't notice." She looked at me like I was someone new. Or maybe someone she never really saw before. And then, without another word, she stood up and walked out of my office. I didn't chase her. For once in my life, I didn't feel the need to smooth it over. I let her go. After Mom's note, things got quieter still. Not in that peaceful, I've moved on way. It was more like the eye of a storm, stillness with tension humming underneath. I kept the card. Slid it into the drawer of my nightstand. Every now and then, I'd open it and read the 5 lines again. They didn't change, but my reaction to them did. Some days I felt a flicker of warmth. Other days, a dull ache. And more than once, nothing at all. I didn't know what to do with it. A lifetime of being the afterthought in someone else's story had taught me how to endure, not how to forgive. Then, in late October, just before Halloween, Roxanne called. I almost didn't answer. Her name flashing across my phone felt like someone ringing your doorbell uninvited after dark. But I picked up. Habit, maybe. "Hey," she said, a little too upbeat. "I was hoping you'd answer." "Hi. I was thinking of having a small get-together. Nothing big. Just family. Mom's been kind of down, and I thought. I don't know. Maybe we could just hang out. No drama. Just be." I didn't respond right away. She kept going. "You don't have to say anything. Just think about it. I know things haven't been easy. And I know it's not all one-sided. We've all done stuff." I almost laughed. We've all done stuff. As if the emotional economy of this family had ever been equally distributed. Still, she didn't sound like she was trying to guilt me. Not really. Just, fill the empty space. I'll think about it, I said. And I did. For a week. I thought about how much of my life I'd spent being cordial for the sake of peace, only to end up the scapegoat anyway. I thought about sitting in that backyard again, paper plate on my lap, smile on my face, while someone made another dig and everyone else sipped their lemonade like it was ambient noise. But I also thought about my mother sitting in her living room alone, wondering why I hadn't written back. I didn't owe her forgiveness. Not really. But I owed myself honesty, and a chance to decide what I wanted, instead of what would keep the water calm. So I didn't go to Roxanne's get-together. Instead, I wrote a letter. Not a text. Not a call. A real, pen-to-paper letter. It started with, "I got your note. I believe you miss me. I just don't know if you ever really saw me." I kept it measured. Truthful. I didn't unload. I didn't accuse. But I didn't sugarcoat either. I told her about what that moment in the driveway felt like. How watching her laugh while I was belittled, yet again, didn't just sting. It opened up every old scar I'd been bandaging in silence for decades. I told her I wasn't angry anymore, but I was tired. That I didn't know if we could build something new, but I wasn't shutting the door. I ended with, "I need time. But I also need truth. If you're willing to meet me there someday, I'll be open to it. Until then, I hope you're well." I mailed it the next morning. No expectations. No cliffhanger moment. Just, the next thing that felt honest. The weeks after that felt a little lighter. I didn't realize how much energy I had been spending managing hope that my mom would finally see me, that Julian would stop treating me like a punchline, that Roxanne would stop treating the family dynamic like some kind of reality show with her as the star. When you stop hoping for things to change and start choosing what you will and won't accept, there's a strange kind of freedom in that. You're not healed. But you're not bleeding anymore either. At work, I was sharper. I started mentoring a new hire named Selena, 27, whip-smart, curious, hungry to learn. She reminded me of myself 20 years ago, only louder, more confident. Watching her take up space like it was hers by default made me realize how much space I'd been shrinking into just to keep the peace. One Friday afternoon, she came into my office, holding a spreadsheet. "Hey," she said, "is this too much?" I was going to suggest a new logistics vendor, but I didn't want to step on toes. I smiled. "Step away. Worst they can say is no." She nodded, a little surprised. "You always so fearless?" I paused. "No," I said. "But I'm getting there." 2 months later, right around Christmas, a package arrived at my door. No name on the return label, just a familiar address in Durham. Inside was a small box wrapped in gold paper. And inside that, a keychain. Silver. Engraved with the words, "Seen. Heard. Loved." No note. Just the keychain. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just held it in my hand, heavy and simple, and let it sit there. I didn't know what it meant yet. If it was an apology. An olive branch. Or just a gesture with no strings. But for once, I didn't need to rush to assign meaning. I didn't need to plan my next move. I just sat there and let it be what it was. By the time the new year rolled in, I had settled into a rhythm, one that didn't include Sunday dinners or group chats or fake laughter over pot roast and backhanded compliments. I had started calling this new phase of life my quiet rebellion. It didn't involve shouting or slamming doors. It looked like not answering calls I didn't want to take. It looked like going for walks alone on Sunday evenings instead of sitting at a table where everyone else's needs swallowed mine. It looked like choosing myself. But quiet doesn't mean empty. There were moments, unexpected ones, where the loneliness curled around me like a cold wind. Like the day I got promoted. I sat in my car in the parking lot after my boss shook my hand and gave me a plaque I'd never hang up. I thought about who I'd call first. Who I'd want to celebrate with. Then I realized I didn't want to tell anyone in my family. Not because I didn't want them to know. Because I didn't want to hear the silence. Or worse, the dismissal. Must be nice not having kids to worry about. How much more can you really move up in logistics? Wow, finally getting noticed, huh? It wasn't even about what they'd say, it was that they'd make me small for something that felt so hard-earned. So I sat there. Let the moment be mine. Quiet, unshared, but mine. Later that week, Selena brought in cupcakes. When she found out why, she grinned and said, "Tessa, you're seriously the most under-celebrated badass I know." I laughed. A real laugh. One that didn't taste like sugarcoating. Then in early February, I ran into Julian. It was at a coffee shop, one of those new places that tries too hard to be minimalist. I was picking up a to-go order when I heard his voice behind me. "Tessa?" I turned, already bracing myself. He was alone. Dressed down. No sunglasses, no bravado. Just jeans, a hoodie, and a look I hadn't seen before. Tired. Not just physically, like something in him had deflated. "Hey," I said carefully. He nodded. "Didn't expect to see you here." I shrugged. "It's a coffee shop. I live nearby." We stood there awkwardly. I didn't try to fill the silence. He glanced down at his coffee, then back at me. "Look," he said, "I don't know what to say. About that day. The reunion." I said nothing. Just waited. I was being a jackass, he admitted. I thought I was being funny. But, yeah. I wasn't. That surprised me. Julian didn't do apologies. Not real ones. At best, he'd toss out of my bag like a used napkin and move on. But this time, he looked uncomfortable. Like the words cost something. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said. "Stuff's changing. I got laid off. Rachel moved out. I guess I've been looking at things different." He didn't say he was sorry. But he also didn't make excuses. And maybe for him, that was as close as he'd ever get. I nodded. Okay. He looked like he wanted to say more but didn't know how. After a moment, he gestured at my coffee cup. "You got time to sit? Catch up?" I paused. I didn't owe him that. But I also wasn't angry. Not anymore. I gestured toward a table by the window. 10 minutes. We sat. We talked. Not about the past, not about Mom, just work, the city, the weather. Ordinary stuff. And when we parted ways, there was no big breakthrough. No sudden healing. But there was something else, a kind of neutrality. A crack in the tension. A pause in the cycle. It wasn't forgiveness. But it wasn't nothing. A week later, I got a call from Roxanne. I ignored it. She called again the next day. I ignored it again. Then she texted, "Hey. Mom's asking about you again. You should call her. She's different lately. I think she's trying." I read it 3 times before setting my phone down. That night, I pulled out the silver keychain she'd sent at Christmas. I still hadn't attached it to anything. It sat in the dish by my front door, waiting. I held it in my palm. Seen. Heard. Loved. 3 words I'd spent years giving other people while never expecting them in return. What would it look like to believe them? Not just from her, but for myself? The thought scared me more than I liked to admit. A few days later, I stopped by a boutique shop on the way home. I was looking for a small planter for my desk. Something bright. Something alive. As I browsed, my phone buzzed. A text. "Mom, no pressure. But I'd love to have coffee with you. Just coffee. My treat. You can say no." I stared at it. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't manipulative. It was simple. Controlled. And for the first time, I didn't feel the automatic reflex to say yes or no out of habit or guilt. I just felt curious. I put the phone back in my pocket. I wasn't ready to respond. Not yet. But I wasn't dismissing it either. And that was new. I didn't respond to her coffee invite. Not right away. I let it sit there in my inbox for 3 more days, like a stone on a shelf I wasn't sure I wanted to touch. But eventually, I opened the message again, read it once more, and typed a simple reply, sure. 1 hour. I'll meet you at the Bean House on Chapel Hill Road. 3 p.m. Sunday. I chose the place. Neutral ground. Not her turf. Not mine. The Bean House was quiet, no nonsense, and served decent chai. It wasn't a trap. Just a table with 2 chairs and a clock I'd be watching. She showed up right on time. She looked older than the last time I'd seen her. Smaller somehow, too. Her posture wasn't as tight. Her hair wasn't colored. She wore a simple cardigan over a patterned blouse I'd seen her wear for years. No performance. I nodded as she approached. She sat. For the first few minutes, we talked about nothing. Weather. Traffic. I let her set the pace. Then she said it. I'm sorry. The real kind. Not just for the reunion. For everything. For not standing up for you. For always letting your brother get away with it. For treating your help like an obligation instead of a gift. I don't know why I did it. Maybe because I thought you didn't need anything from me. You were always so capable. So quiet. But I see now that wasn't fair. I didn't say anything. I didn't rescue her with "it's okay." I let the apology breathe. You didn't deserve that, she added. And with that, the apology felt complete. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel warm or moved. What I felt, for once, was seen. We parted without promises. Just a hug that felt real. That was all I needed. But this story doesn't end with a tender reunion. No, the revenge part came in the weeks after, in the consequences of clarity. Julian called me again. This time, with purpose. He'd gotten himself tangled up in another mess. A real estate investment in South Carolina that backfired. He was on the hook for over $100,000 in private loans and couldn't get any more extensions. He wanted to know if I'd be willing to co-sign something, just short-term, he said. Just as a favor. I could almost hear the smirk behind the charm. I said no. He sounded shocked. Tessa, it's me. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. I believe you, I said. But I'm not available for that anymore. He tried again. Begged a little. Then got mad. You think you're too good for this family now? No, I said calmly. I just finally learned where my worth is. And then, I blocked him. I didn't feel a single twinge of guilt. Around that same time, Roxanne reached out. She wanted to clear the air, she said. Put everything behind us. But I knew what that meant. She'd done it before. It always led back to some shared expense or favor she needed, this time, probably the destination bachelorette trip she was planning for a friend. I told her the truth. I'm not interested in performing closeness anymore. I wish you well, but we're not good for each other. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. People like Roxanne wither when they can't get a reaction. She faded all on her own. Then came the final move, the part that felt like revenge, but wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. Mom reached out again. She'd been doing small things. Texts. Cards. Little gifts dropped off at my door. She even started seeing a therapist, something I never thought I'd witness. She wanted to make it up to me. So I gave her one chance. She had a small house in Durham. Nothing fancy, but it had some equity. She had hinted about passing it to Julian years ago, since he was the one who might need it most. So I made her an offer. If you're serious about making things right, put it in writing. Update your will. Make things fair. She looked stunned. Then quiet. Then resolved. 3 weeks later, she called me and said, I met with the attorney. It's done. Everything's been split evenly. And the house is in a trust. No more secrets. No more favorites. I didn't thank her. I just said, good. The final satisfying twist? I used the money I'd saved from not paying Mom's insurance, not bailing Julian out, not funding Roxanne's nonsense, and bought a new car. A luxury one. But not for anyone else. For me. A sleek, deep blue Lexus RX 500h. The same model I'd once driven off the lot, hopeful that giving something beautiful would earn me something back. This time I wasn't trying to be seen. I already was. By me.